Mariel de la Cruz walked through the narrow alleyways of Tondo, Manila, the early morning sunlight cutting through the hanging laundry above her like thin golden blades. The small community was already alive with the usual sounds: vendors shouting prices, children running barefoot, tricycles rumbling across uneven cement, and radios playing old Filipino love songs. Mariel carried a worn backpack on her shoulder. Inside it, a notebook filled with lyrics she wrote during long nights when sleep refused to come. She was only 19, but her eyes carried the weight of someone who had lived many lives of hardship. At home, her mother had already begun washing clothes for neighbors, her hands raw from soap and cold water. Her father sat quietly in a corner, still searching the newspaper for job openings after being laid off from a construction site. Their home, made of patched wood and thin metal sheets, shook gently whenever a jeepney passed by. Yet inside that fragile home was a fierce love that held the family together. Mariel grew up knowing that even in struggle, kindness survived. Every evening, after her small jobs delivering food boxes and helping at a sari-sari store, she would sit on their tiny balcony overlooking the busy street and sing softly. Her siblings would fall asleep listening to her voice, as if her songs could erase hunger and tiredness. Music became her escape, her comfort, and her secret dream. But dreams felt expensive in a place where even a kilo of rice was a blessing. One night, while scrolling through an old phone with cracked glass, Mariel stumbled upon the announcement for America's Got Talent auditions. Her heart raced. Something inside her whispered that this was her chance, a door she needed to open no matter what waited behind it. But when she checked the travel cost, her hands trembled. She didn't tell her family at first. She didn't want to give them hope that would become another heartbreak. But her mother noticed the silent spark in her eyes. After listening to Mariel sing a powerful emotional ballad on the balcony that night, she sat beside her and said, "Anak, kung para sayo, makukaha mo, don't stop yourself." Those words unlocked the courage she had been hiding. Their neighbors, who always heard her voice echoing through the narrow streets, came together in a way she never expected. Some gave small coins, some gave folded bills, some offered food for the trip. Even the tricycle drivers, tough on the outside but soft-hearted, contributed. It was a community-made dream, stitched together by generosity. When the day came for Mariel to leave for Los Angeles, her family walked with her to the jeepney stop, holding back tears. She clutched her small bag, her heart pounding so loudly she could feel it in her throat. The airport felt huge, frightening, and cold compared to the warmth of Manila's chaos, but she carried her courage like armor. Standing backstage at AGT, waiting for her turn, she felt her knees shaking. She whispered a quiet prayer, imagining her siblings watching her through their old TV. When her name was called, she stepped onto the stage, the lights overwhelming her senses. She wore a simple white dress, borrowed shoes slightly too big for her feet. The judges looked at her with curiosity. The audience buzzed with expectation. But inside her chest, there was only one message. Para sa pamilya kayo, para sa Tondo. And with that, she took her first breath, ready to show the world a voice shaped by struggle, hope, and the unbreakable heart of a Filipina. Mariel stood at the center of the America's Got Talent stage as if she had wandered into a dream too bright to be real. The lights above her looked like falling stars, glowing with a cold intensity she had never felt before. Her hands trembled slightly, but she hid them behind the microphone stand, hoping the judges wouldn't notice how terrified she was. The vast theater stretched out before her, hundreds of faces, thousands of eyes watching, waiting, judging. For a girl who grew up singing to sleeping siblings on a tiny balcony in Tondo, this stage felt like another universe. She inhaled, and the smell of the polished floor and heavy curtains filled her lungs. She could almost hear her heart pounding louder than the murmurs of the audience. When Simon Cowell leaned forward in his signature posture, arms crossed, eyebrows slightly raised, Mariel felt a surge of pressure. It was as if the entire world balanced on the next few seconds of her life. The soft piano intro of her emotional ballad began. The first note echoed across the hall, and Mariel's throat tightened. She closed her eyes for a moment, remembering the cramped streets of Manila, her mother's tired hands, her father's quiet hope, and her siblings sleeping peacefully to her voice. She opened her eyes again, and something inside her unlocked. Her voice came out shaky at first, fragile like thin glass. She feared it would break in front of everyone. But then she felt the music wrap around her like a warm embrace. Her voice steadied. Her chest expanded with the force of every struggle she had survived, and suddenly, her fear dissolved into something bold and uncontainable. The tone of her voice deepened, carrying years of hunger, long nights, rain dripping through their roof, and all the silent prayers she whispered while staring at the city skyline. As she climbed into the higher notes, the audience grew still, completely still. A hush spread through the theater, as if everyone had forgotten to breathe. Simon's expression changed. His initial curiosity melted into something unexpectedly soft. His eyes narrowed, not in criticism but in focus, as if he was trying to understand the story behind every vibration of her voice. He uncrossed his arms slowly. This was rare for him. He was not just listening, he was feeling. Heidi wiped her cheek discreetly. Sophia placed a hand over her heart. Howie leaned forward, blinking rapidly, his jaw tightening with emotion. Mariel had not just captured their attention. She had touched something deeper. As the song approached its emotional peak, her voice cracked, not out of weakness, but raw truth. Tears slipped down her face, each one glistening under the stage lights like tiny stars falling from her eyelashes. But she didn't stop. She embraced the crack, poured more emotion into it, let the pain shape the sound into something painfully beautiful. By the time she reached the final note, the entire hall was vibrating with the power of her performance. Her voice soared, then dropped into a fragile whisper that floated in the air long after the music had stopped. There was silence. Complete and absolute silence. And then, an explosion of applause. People rose to their feet instantly, cheering, clapping, shouting her name. The sound hit her like a wave, warm and overwhelming. Mariel's knees weakened, and she held the microphone tightly just to stay standing. She looked at the judges through her tears. Simon stared back at her, eyes glistening, lips parted, unable to speak for a moment. She had done it. She had broken the silence, the fear, the distance between worlds. She had made the world listen. The applause still echoed through the vast theater like rolling waves when Simon Cowell slowly rose from his seat. For a heartbeat, the room felt quiet again, not out of uncertainty, but expectation. The audience had seen the way his expression softened during Mariel's performance, and now every eye was fixed on him. Mariel, still trembling, clutched the microphone with both hands, her breath catching in her chest as she watched him stand. Simon leaned forward, resting his hands gently on the judge's table, his gaze locked onto her. His voice, usually sharp and blunt, came out softer than anyone expected. "Mariel," he began, taking a brief pause as if searching for the right words. "Your voice may not be polished like trained singers, but what you delivered tonight was life. Pure, honest life." Heidi wiped her eyes openly now. "I felt your pain," she whispered, her voice cracking. "And your hope, too." Sophia nodded vigorously beside her, still pressing a hand over her chest as if holding her heart in place. Howie shifted forward, shaking his head in disbelief. "You didn't just sing the song," he said. "You lived it in front of us." The audience erupted again with cheers, but Simon lifted a hand slightly, and the room fell quiet once more, hanging on his next words. Mariel felt her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst through her ribs. Her whole body shook, not with fear this time, but with the emotional weight of everything that was unfolding. Simon exhaled deeply, his eyes never leaving hers. "You walked onto this stage as a young girl from Manila," he said warmly, "but the moment you opened your mouth, you became a giant. A storyteller. A soul we couldn't ignore." Tears streamed down Mariel's cheeks. She covered her mouth with one hand, unable to control the flood of emotion. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times while singing to the noisy streets of Tondo, but imagination had never come close to this. Simon then glanced up at the golden buzzer above him. The audience noticed, and gasps rippled through the theater. Mariel felt her legs weaken again. Her breathing hitched. Time slowed. "Mariel," Simon said, voice filled with quiet certainty, "this is one of those moments I will remember for a very long time." He reached forward. His hand pressed the golden buzzer. The hall erupted, exploding into screams, cheers, and roaring applause as golden confetti burst above the stage like a shower of falling stars. The dazzling gold flakes swirled around Mariel, clinging to her hair and dress, sparkling against the tears streaming down her cheeks. She looked up in disbelief, hands shaking violently, her chest rising and falling with sobs she couldn't suppress. Her vision blurred. Her mind went blank. For a brief, beautiful moment, she forgot the pain, the hunger, the nights her family couldn't afford electricity, the times she doubted herself. All she saw was her dream, real, shining, falling from the sky like a blessing. The warm confetti brushed her skin, each piece feeling like a whisper from her family back home. "Kai Imoyen, Mariel." She pressed her hands to her face, overwhelmed, laughing and crying at the same time. Her voice cracked into a sob as she whispered, "Para ese inyo tu, para ese Tondo." Simon walked toward the stage, something he rarely did. When Mariel stepped down from the platform to greet him, he placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You earned this," he said softly. "Don't ever stop believing in that voice." The crowd chanted her name over and over. Mariel, Mariel, Mariel. And in that golden rain, under the glowing lights of a stage worlds away from her home, Mariel de la Cruz finally saw herself the way the world now saw her. Not a girl from the slums. Not a dreamer who almost gave up. But a star, born from hardship, lifted by hope, and shining brighter than she ever thought possible.